decided to admit Palestine as member of UNESCO.
Welcoming Palestine into UNESCO. This is the first UN agency to upgrade the Palestinian status from an observer to a full member state. 107 countries supported the bid, 14 opposed it, including the US, Canada, Germany and Israel. Another 52 abstained, among them the United Kingdom.
Where occupation has been trying really to change realities. We want really to preserve and to protect cultural heritage in Palestine.
The vote means that sites like Bethlehem's Church of the Nativity can now be nominated for World Heritage status.
This is the spot where Christians believe that Jesus Christ was born. And Palestinians say in order to preserve and protect this church, as well as many other sites across the occupied territories, they need to become a full member of UNESCO.
The US and Israel opposed the Palestinians' UNESCO bid, seeing it as an extension of their ongoing campaign for full recognition as a state by the United Nations Security Council.
UNESCO deals in science, not science fiction. However, a large number of states, though most emphatically less than 2/3 of the member states of this organization, have adopted a science fiction version of reality by admitting a non-existent state to the science organization.
The Palestinians have around 20 locations across the West Bank and Gaza they plan to have declared World Heritage Sites. These include the old cities of Nablus and Hebron, but some religious sites are particularly contentious as they are revered by both Muslims and Jews.
It will change. It will conserve the Palestinian heritage places similar to the Nativity Church, Al-Aqsa Mosque, other places that the Israelis is going with their policy to take their Arabic identity from it and put an Israeli identity to these places. It's a part of our justice battle, and I think that we will win, and we won today.
This won't give the Palestinians the state they want, but many hope it will strengthen their case for full statehood at the United Nations. Nicole Johnston, Al Jazeera, Bethlehem.
Well, let's listen now to how the U.S. responded to that vote by UNESCO.
Well, those countries obviously made their own national decisions on this vote. We disagree with them. We made clear that we disagree with them before the vote. We make clear that we disagree with them after the vote. We also make clear here today that we want to continue our relationship with UNESCO, but as we said before this vote, and as we have had to say today, legislative restrictions compel us to withhold our funding now, and that will have an impact on UNESCO.
Right, to get more on this, let's speak to Al Jazeera's Rosalind Jordan in Washington, D.C. Rosalind, very interesting to hear from that spokesperson there saying that restrictions compel them to impose, well, to withhold the $60 million. Explain to us a little bit more how it's come about that the U.S. is now withholding $60 million worth of funding.
Well, this is the situation, Barbara. In 1994, a couple of laws were passed which put restrictions on the U.S. in the way it can give money to the UN and to UN affiliates. It's very simple. One, if the UN or any agency decided to recognize an organization or a group of people without meeting the total standards for statehood, then the U.S. would be legally required to not give the UN or any affiliate any of its required monies. There's also a second part. It specifically named the Palestine Liberation Organization, which is one part of the organization that the Palestinian Authority does have a close relationship to in terms of its relationship to the United Nations and the United Nations affiliates. It specifically said if the PLO was made a member state without, or a member of any organization without having achieved statehood, the U.S. again would be banned from giving any discretionary funds to that particular agency. That is what has been triggered here today. It's a law that has been on the books for now 16, 17 years, And there is a push in Congress to even toughen those regulations because there are a number of members of Congress who are very concerned that the Palestinian push for statehood recognition from the UN simply upends the peace process, and they simply say that it is not helpful either to the Palestinian people or to Israel. And there are many members of Congress who are very much concerned about Israeli support and about Jewish American support if they were to be seen as supporting the Palestinian efforts in any real or concrete way.
It does seem to put the U.S. in a bit of a bind, especially because I guess we can assume the Palestinians will try, like they've done with UNESCO, will try to get some kind of recognition from other UN agencies. So presumably this problem could keep on recurring.
And certainly that is the warning that we heard from Victoria Nuland today at the State Department briefing, that there is the potential for what she called a cascade effect. The idea that the Palestinians, now having been able to achieve this membership status at UNESCO, could then move to other agencies where the U.S. does have a vital interest. For example, one agency that deals with intellectual property rights. Certainly that's a major concern for American businesses. If the Palestinians were, for example, to gain membership in that agency, it could make it much more difficult for the U.S. to protect the interests of American businesses when it comes to things such as intellectual property theft. Certainly, there's also the question of whether or not the U.S. is losing any influence, because some wags might suggest that without the money, how much influence do you really have? But it really, when it comes down to this action today at UNESCO, we're now talking about upwards of $60 million that the U.S. was supposed to pay to UNESCO as part of its dues in November. Now everyone is scrambling to try to figure out what operations at UNESCO could be affected if indeed this payment does not go through. And the way U.S. law is written right now, Barbara, there really is no way that the Obama administration can get around this law. There's no waiver, as it were, for exceptional cases.
Very complicated issue. Rosalind Jordan in Washington, thank you. Now, Libya's national